Hare Krishna. Welcome to the morning Bhagavatam class. We'll start offering prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्ता राधाकान्ता नमोस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पाञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् शुश्रूषोषददानस्य वासुदेवकथारुचि स्यान्महत्सेवया विप्रा पुण्यतीर्थनिषेवनात् शृण्वता स्वकथा कृष्णा पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृद्यन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्स्वताम् नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी तदा रजस्तमो भाव कामलोभादयश्च ये चेत एतैरनाविद्धं स्थितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति एवं प्रसन्नमनसो भगवद्भक्तियोगतः भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गस्य जायते भिद्यते हृदयग्रन्थिश्छिद्यन्ते सर्वसंशयः क्षीयन्ते च कर्माणि दृष्ट एवात्मनीश्वरे मदेकबन्धो मत्सङ्गिन् मद्गुरो मन्महादना मन्निष्ठारकमद्भाग्य मदानन्द नमोऽस्तुते असाधु साधुतादायिन् अतिनीचोच्चताकराध्यानमुञ्च कदाचिन् मां प्रेम्ण हृत्कण्ठयो स्फुरा ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. So today we are going to see the verses Canto 3, Chapter 1, verses 37 and 38. As we all know, this is questions by Vidura to Uddhava. So it's their meeting and questions that Vidura asks Uddhava. Now we are at a section from the last verse that the inquiries are primarily about Pandavas. Vidura is just inquiring about Pandavas. In the 36th verse that was done yesterday, Vidura inquired about Yudhishthir Maharaj. And now in this 37 and 38, the inquiry is about Bhimasena and Arjuna. So we'll read the verses quickly. 3:1:37. Kimva कृतागेष्वगमत्यमर्षि भीमो हि वद्दीर्घतमं व्यमुञ्चत् यस्याङ्घ्रिपातं रणभूर्णसेहे मार्गं गदायाश्चरतो विचित्रम् किं वा कृतागेष्वगमत्यमर्षि भीमो हि वद्दीर्घतमं व्यमुञ्चत् यस्याङ्घ्रिपातं रणभूर्णसेः मार्गं गदायश्चरतो विचित्रम् Kim whether va either krita performed agheshu unto the sinners agam anger ati amarshi unconquerable bhima ativat like a cobra ahivat like a cobra dirgatamam long cherished vyamunchat has released Yasya whose Angripatam putting on the steps. Rana Bhu, the field of battle. Na could not Sehe tolerate. Margam, the path. Gadayaha, by the clubs. Charataha, playing. Vichitram, wonderful. Next verse 38. Kachit Yashoda Ratayutapanam Gandiva Danvo Paratarir Aste Ratari Alakshito Yachakrakuta Gudo Gudo Maya Kirato Girishastutosha Kachit Yashoda Ratayudapanam Gandiva Danvo Paratari Alakshito Yacharakuta Gudo Maya Kirato Girishastutosha Kachit whether Yasha Da famous Rata Yutapanam among the great chariot warriors, Gandiva Dhanva, carrying the Gandiva bow, Arjuna, Upat Rata Arihi, one who has vanquished the enemies, Aste, doing well, Alakshitaha, without being identified, Yat, whose Sara Kuta Gudaha, being covered by arrows, Maya Kirataha, false hunter, Girishaha, Lord Shiva, Tutosha was satisfied. Translation. Please tell me whether Arjuna, whose bow bears the name Gandivan, who's always famous amongst the chariot warriors for vanquishing his enemies, is doing well. He once satisfied Lord Shiva by covering him with arrows when Shiva came as an unidentified false hunter. So now we are going back to text 37. Okay, so Vidura is asking, please tell me whether the unconquerable Bhima, who is like a cobra, has released his long cherished anger upon the sinners. The field of battle could not tolerate even the wonderful playing of his club when he stepped on the path. Purport. Vidura knew the strength of Bhima. Whenever Bhima was on the battlefield, his steps on the path and the wonderful playing of his club were unbearable for the enemy. Powerful Bhima did not take steps against the sons of Dhritarashtra for a long time. Vidura's inquiry was whether he had yet released his anger, which was like that of a suffering cobra. When a cobra releases its venom after long cherished anger, its victim cannot survive. So, this is the first verse for today. Just interesting. Um, what I'm noticing interestingly is um, Agham is translated word to word as anger. We also know another another meaning for Agham is also sin. But here in this case, um, the translation is saying, or the verse is saying, that it did Bhima, did he release his long cherished anger? Cherished is something, the word that we use for, something good. But here it's long cherished anger upon the sinners. So it's actually it's almost like saying it's a rightful anger upon the sinners. We also have heard Prabhupada quote in Bhagavad Gita how, and even in Srimad Bhagavatam first canto, how many different kinds of atrocities are sins that um, these Kauravas did on Pandavas. They did all six kind of atrocities, uh, you like taking their property, trying to kill them with weapons, trying to kill them with like demoniac or asuric kind of people, and then living entities basically, and then also giving them poison and disrespecting their the woman in the family. So there's all kinds of atrocities they have done. So this Vidura is asking, is it did he finish releasing his anger? Because he has been tolerating for a long time, even though he did not want to tolerate, basically. Now, with all this, when Bhima is an expert, when he goes on the battlefield, the enemies actually dread him, because when he steps on the battlefield, it is really his expert way of um, doing the club. Fighting with the club is extremely expert that people actually are very scared. So now we also know that Bhima is um, Kunti's second son, Pandu and Kunti's second son, but he was also like a celestial person, like he was from wind god Vayu. So it is really intense with Vayu. We also know that Hanuman is also Vayu Putra. We know the strength of Hanuman, and Bhima is also, in one sense, Vayu Putra. It's such a big power. Nobody can stop the wind. So Bhima is very, very intense. Now he actually is asking, Vidura is asking, done? Did he finish them all? What's happening? As if he doesn't know. That's the thing. It's like it's in denial at this point. So that is about Bhima. And the next verse is about Arjuna. So let's see the verse about Arjuna here. Please tell me whether Arjuna, whose bow bears the name Gandiva, so Gandiva Dhanva is his name, who is always famous amongst the chariot warriors for vanquishing his enemies. Is he doing well? He once satisfied Lord Shiva by covering him with arrows when Shiva came as an unidentified false hunter. So Arjuna was famous as a fighter in general, but he also was famous not just among the people of the this world. He was also famous among celestial heavenly planets. He also was famous even with Lord Shiva, his encounter with Lord Shiva. So we know Arjuna, how expert he is. He is he has such an expertise in in his what do you call, like equals here, in the at that point his contemporaries in the world. And then we also know how he actually, for 1 year, he went on just walking up the Himalayas and reaching the celestial um, planets or celestial region, which nobody has access to even to see. But Arjuna could just go in the same body to Indraloka and be there in Indraloka with his father Indra. So, and then, in this whole 1 year um, attempt of him in meditation and austerities and going to the celestial region from Himalayas, we know this encounter that he had with Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva himself comes as a hunter, and then there was a boar which they both were trying to hunt, and then both arrows uh, apparently attack the boar at the same time, and they have an argument whose arrow came first. And then Lord Shiva and Arjuna um, enter into a combat. Uh, like, of course, the bow and arrow, actual, not like hand to hand combat. And then in that, Arjuna really, Lord Shiva allows Arjuna to just cover him with all these arrows, because he just becomes so pleased with Arjuna's mood. At the same time, the warrior mood. At the same time, as soon as he realizes it's Lord Shiva, Arjuna just bows down. And in in response to Arjuna's valor, and also in response to his mood, Lord Shiva himself gives Pashupata Ashtra to Arjuna. So now Vidura inquired about all these Pandavas one by one because they are very connected to him. We know that how Vidura had helped them in many, many ways. He had care and affection for them. When this whole intrigue was planned by Duryodhan and approved by Dhritarashtra to send the Pandavas and Kunti before their marriage, of course, before Pandavas' marriage, Kunti and Pandavas to Varnavata, to the house of lac, and they get burnt down. That's the plan by Duryodhan, and he tells um, Purochana, who is actually the like a minister to Duryodhan, to build a house of lac made with flammable, highly flammable ingredients and items, materials, and they were going to get burnt down. But then, as Yudhishthira Maharaj left, or as they were taking leave of Hastinapur, Vidura was the one who actually hinted Yudhishthira Maharaj with an indirect message to be cautious. And Vidura was the one who arranged for a person who could dig a tunnel out of that Varanavata house of lac or palace of lac. So the language that Vidura spoke was very much um, understandable by the Pandavas because they both are virtuous in nature. They both are virtuous in nature. And Vidura was also like a counselor who could give strength to Kunti Devi when Kunti Devi was grief stricken with the whole situation that her children were going through and she was going through. Vidura was actually like a counselor who could pacify Kunti, reminding her of their celestial origin and also their capacity as warriors, as virtuous uh, people in general. So Vidura played a very important role in Pandava's life, very key role in Pandavas and Kunti's life. Now he is asking um, about this whole entire situation, to Uddhava, even though he already passed by Prabhasa Kshetra. Now he is asking, is are they doing okay? Is Arjuna well? Because he's still processing and in denial of uh, the fact that Krishna has left, and Arjuna and the Pandavas, of course, they also, you know. So that's the situation at this point. And about Arjuna and Bhima, we can say so much. Arjuna has so many names. His name is Dhananjaya, winner of wealth. He also has this name Vijaya, uh, always victorious. And he has this name of what do you call, like the um, uh, Jishnu. Jishnu means unconquerable. His other name is Krishna, dark complexioned. There's so many names. And the name Arjuna is, he also has another name, Sabyasachi. He's such an expert. So now Vidura is asking about these two very dear, um, uh, you know, relatives, his own relatives. So this is the section that we are covering right now, reading right now. Now he will also ask about the twin brothers in the next few verses. Um, so it's just a lot of emotion invested in this, not just like a list of questions, but lots and lots of emotions invested in this entire section of Vidura inquiring about everybody. So yeah, so that's what is happening. Pandavas are still, you know, after all this, then after this pilgrimage, he also goes back and sees Dhritarashtra. The entire thing, is going to happen. But yeah, that's where we are at. Anything, devotees? Anybody wants to share anything?
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji,
Krishna.
for nicely describing. I was really thinking about that long cherished anger. That was very interesting way Vidra was putting. It really
Yeah,
shows that he also, wants Bhima to, show his anger and release that. The
yeah,
other thing I'm thinking, Mataji, as you were describing so beautifully how critical role Vidura has played and very, very affectionate, like almost treating as his children and caring for them. But when he starts asking Uddhava, he was asking about Krishna and all his relatives, and then he is actually coming to the Pandavas.
yeah,
So that was very interesting. I was thinking, Uddhava is like kind of related to Krishna. So he's first asking them, or like, just it was interesting. So just
I know.
yeah.
Yeah, think the attachment goes to the first place. I guess he's really attached to Krishna. And that's how I can see it. He first asks about Krishna. We can say it's etiquette, this, that, everything, but actually it is beyond all that. Um, like we discussed some time ago, if Vidura wanted, when he exited the palace, he could have straightforward just gone to Dwarka to just be with Krishna. What else is the pilgrimage? Uh, you know, but then he goes to pilgrimage so that he can actually go to Krishna in that mood. So yeah, and those whoever is dear to Krishna is also dear to Vidura. Yeah, it's a very interesting observation that you shared, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare
Yeah.
Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna
Mataji,
Prabhu.
wonderful.
Fine.
Like when you were mentioning Arjuna fighting with Lord Shiva, that was the story of Pashupatasra. So, Arjuna actually, even though Lord Shiva allows Arjuna to subdue him,
Yeah.
like a devotee, after that, he becomes humble. He doesn't become puffed up. I was contrasting this with
Yeah.
what Ravana did when he was traveling by Kailash mountain, and then, even after 1,000 years that he suffered, and, because his hand was trapped under Kailash mountain, then he
Yeah.
sings the Lord, but he still comes back puffed up. After
Yeah.
that, and he meets Vedavati, and, all that incidents
Yeah.
happen. So like I was just contrasting the behavior of a devotee and a non-devotee. So thank you, Mataji.
Very nice, Prabhu. Thank you for bringing it up. Yes. Mode of service is the driving force and factor for a devotee's action, no matter how it looks externally. Of course, it's very high. One must be very fixed up in that mood of service. But that mood of service and connection to Krishna and the main goal and purpose is very clear for a fixed up devotee. Therefore, even though they may apparently look as if they are being arrogant, they are actually not. But of course, this is a very mature devotee that we are talking about. Similarly to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would look like he was very straightforward. He was very um, what do you call, like straight at the face of the royal people, even royal kings and um, uh, political people. He could just say things for a fact, but that was not out of arrogance. That was actually out of deep compassion and deep devotion, that he could even speak there, and he was also extremely humble. When we see the other portions of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's expressions and his lifestyle, it signifies how much he was humble. It is unimaginable. So the point that you brought about Ravana is extremely, it's a visible um, contrast that you brought up, because both of them actually connected to Lord Shiva, Arjuna and this Ravana. And the approach for both of them were different, and the end result was also different. The way they dealt with it throughout, everything was different. It's Arjuna's thing was code of conduct of a warrior and his duty as a kshatriya, and also um, his at the end, therefore he was not attached. He was willing to just submit to a greater Vaishnava, such as Lord Shiva. But here, um, the starting point itself was, for Ravana, starting point itself was not in the right place, and therefore his end point was also not in the right place. So
Yeah.
yeah, some people actually, even if the starting point is wrong, through the process they learn.
Mhm.
But there was no goal for Arjuna, so there was no learning. So even when somebody starts off wrong step, but when the goal is clear, then the end point comes. But here for Ravana, there was just no goal of self-realization or anything higher. Therefore, he just didn't even, there was no progress at all made. It was more offense and more pride and more this. So the whole got filled with all the, you know, and his name itself signifies the one who cries. Interesting. Anyway, thank you for bringing that contrast up. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for
And he
bringing
did
that.
call himself as Lord Shiva's devotee, unfortunately.
Yes, Master, that is,
Yeah,
you know, and a lot of people misidentify Ravana as a devotee, great Brahmana, great scholar, all of that,
yeah.
and I, a total misidentification.
Yeah, and some people, some to some extent, I mean, I'm not very good with Ramayana, but then to some extent we can see just from this that how what what happens when somebody becomes a devotee by subjugation, and what
Mhm.
happens when somebody becomes a devotee by love or
Yes.
gratitude or affection.
Mhm.
So that point also is coming out now that you are bringing that up. But yeah, Bhima, Arjuna, Yudhishthira Maharaj, they were not ordinary people. They could just get everything done with no effort, just by their virtue, the power of virtue,
Mhm.
power of austerities and power of virtue. Arjuna had conquered even the Chitra Ratha, right? Who was a celestial Gandharva who captured Duryodhan, the whole deal. So, but then he was in his place. No matter how much of a big service he did or big accomplishment he did, he was in his place. He didn't lose his place internally. That's something that comes out very nice, Prabhu. Thank you so much for bringing. And Vidura's inquiring about them is the highlight. Their
Yeah.
connection shows. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so
Anyway,
much.
thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. So it's 8 o'clock, devotees.
Hare
Any?
Krishna Mataji, can I say one little story in connection with Arjuna winning the Pashupatastra? Just 2 minutes.
Sure, Mataji.
Uh, that is, there is one temple in Devi temple in Kerala, where the goddess, every day she has a pushpa abhishek. That is, she's, covered with flowers. It is called Poo Modal. And the reason behind is in connection with this Arjuna and Lord Shiva fighting for that boar, Mataji. It
Uh-huh.
seems when Parvati saw Arjuna shooting arrows like that, she wished that all those arrows, let them become flowers. So actually, Arjuna rained flowers on Lord Shiva, it seems, and he became covered with flowers than arrows. And then, Devi is wishing, oh, nobody is doing any abhishek for me, flower abhishek for me. So it seems in fulfillment of her desire. Every day people are offering flower abhishek for her in that temple. That's the story there. And if you have to offer that, make that offering to that goddess, you have to wait for years and years, because so many people have booked in advance, it seems. That's one story in Kerala. She's in that mood of that hunter's wife, it seems. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you for sharing the local history. Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji. So yeah, so we probably will end unless anybody else has any appreciations, anything. But this section is just really about Vidura. And we'll
Hare
see
Krishna
in
Mata.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah.
Initially, when you, in the beginning of the class, you brought a very nice point that how much one can tolerate, and then the anger, right? So somebody is doing something wrong, and he, as an elder, Vidura was tolerating. And what is the use of getting anger anyway? He can't do anything much. So what he has to do, he has just to walk out or don't talk. What do we need to do? So what did Vidura do? He did not do anything. He walked out, correct?
Yeah, at the right time, in one sense.
At the right time.
Like, yeah, because his walking out was also not just because of frustration, like but I think he took it as it especially specifically mentions that he considered it as the acts of external energy, and therefore he went to take shelter of internal energy. I think in the 13th chapter, first canto. That's a good point, Prabhu, that you shared, because he was also not just quietly tolerating. His role as a minister and a younger brother, he was constantly advising Dhritarashtra. But then when the
If
when
it
a
doesn't, if it nothing works, what can we do?
yeah, so then Vidura, as such a person as Mahatma, he took that opportunity to first purify himself, and so therefore he went on a pilgrimage. So that's something striking, actually. And he waited and gave them a chance for a long time, until to the point that he was called with ill names, Dasi Putra and this and that. So he was called. It was a deep insult happened. So he tolerated uh, with compassion for a longest time, and then he wanted to exercise his compassion at a different time. Therefore, he chose to leave um, in that, and he also probably didn't. Not probably. He also is not wanting to be part of this battle that is going to happen in a brutal way.
So
So he no in
if something happens to us like this,
mm,
what do we need to do? We need to do, if you think this is a karma, or maybe I did something wrong in my previous and I'm getting that reaction. How do we understand and how should we act?
mm, mm. Yeah, it's a deep subject matter where the immediate thoughts go to uh, one is, yes, we do want to see that if things are repeating, especially if things are the pattern is continuing. One thing is definitely, why am I in this pattern is a question. Am I attracting this pattern for some reason? So is this my past that is coming? But while asking that question, we simply don't want to also judge ourselves that I'm bound to be here. So not like in that angle, not going to a victim mentality while accepting our karmic reactions. And the second thing is, more than karma in a devotee's life, it's Krishna who is acting. So it is a very tough area, but at the same time, even though when a devotee who has been practicing is going through something seemingly karmic, it is our karma used by Krishna for our anartha nivritti. So that's what I've heard. So that a blanket statement that we can keep is Krishna is actually trying to show something to me which I'm not getting. And then
Yeah,
definitely,
that's a blanket statement. You're right. So it might be true.
yeah.
It might not be true. Yeah.
No, but the blanket statement, the way I say the blanket statement is there is, um, it's true because unless we have something to learn, why would the same situations come back to us repeatedly? That's one thing. But then but that doesn't mean that we don't take any action. We just sit tight and do nothing and just keep being a victim or something like that. And then the second blanket statement also is when the person who is perpetrator, because when there is two parties involved, one is hurt and one is hurting, or however we want to see.
Yeah,
So
somebody is provoking. I don't want to
provoking
get anger, but somebody is provoking.
instrument of, yeah,
How much you can tolerate?
so some provoking, yeah. But then the if the provoking person also, we want to be safe to see them as a whole person, not as a one portion of their personality, where we exercise the shastric statements of Bhagavad Gita, where we want to see as sadhureva samantavya. That's another blanket statement. So we want to see both sides, and then we must have um, a neutral person to go to, where we can talk about this. Neutral in the sense that it's not that they're neutral to both of us, that's one. But then the other neutrality I'm talking about is where their emotions are also not invested against us or against the other person. Because if the person we are sharing with is going to take sides either with us or with the other, it is not healthy for us, because we will only get one-sided view even from those who we may consult. So we
The
may
problem is
want,
it's in the process of purification. Nobody is pure, and
yeah,
then the maturity is not there. This is the
yeah,
conflict. This is
yes,
the conflict, and then each person has to understand, and okay, I'm doing wrong, or I'm doing right, whatever. So this is where the conflict comes, and then the communication might help.
yeah. So that communication may need mediation at some level,
Mediation, yeah.
because the reason is that then if there is a trained mediation or trained mediator, then their role, they know that their role is not to take sides on either, because they're just facilitating communication. But if it's not a trained mediation uh, or expert mediation, then one's own emotions can come in the way of facilitating a communication, which actually may be unhealthy for us as people, like for the person who's actually sitting there trying to communicate, because we don't want everything favorable to us either. That's my personal viewpoint on something. If I had some issue with somebody, then I don't want somebody who would be fully favorable to me. I don't want somebody who will be fully favorable to the other
Whatever
person.
supposed to be right, yes, we can follow. But what
Righteous in the
happens?
sense, whatever would be favorable for a devotional service. That's what you
Yeah,
mean by righteous, right? Because right
yes,
and
in the
wrong,
sense, yeah,
have limitations in this world. So it may be more towards
based
what
on
is
the context.
favorable for us.
Based on
Yeah,
the context.
based on the context and what may be most favorable to us in devotional service. That's what we want. We don't want.
Favorable for everyone, not just one person. That's right.
Yeah, but we care about our spiritual life in one
Exactly.
sense first, so we want to be in a safe network of spiritual life. So whatever might help towards that, that's what we want. And so therefore we need people who we need to find people in our lives who will say things to us which would help us resolve our own things within us, and um, try to see what boundaries and uh, f- f- how to make situations somewhat favorable to our spiritual life, not to our personality alone, but to a spiritual life. So this is
Healthy,
yeah,
something.
like
That's
yeah, something for us to, because ultimately why are we practicing?
Exactly.
We don't want to lose the boat in an effort of correcting the situations. At the same time, we don't want to simply rot in the situations and then again lose the boat. So both, we need to take an approach where we will be staying healthy, space where we can practice internally.
Yep.
And externally, if things don't work, then we learn to have our sacred space within the possible um, unfavorable externals. So that maybe that's what we are bound to learn in this material world, because eventually this is not a favorable place. And if you want to say, even in other words, for practicing devotees who have been practicing for so long, all the contacts that we have is devotees. So
What else you
everything,
have?
yeah,
If
so
you come out, the
everything that
problem,
has to happen, frictions or problems, everything will happen among us
even if you come
also.
out, there is a material energy which will act on you anyway.
Yeah, even we always have our friends, our relatives, and everything is just devotees. So the fact is also true that whatever has to happen is going to happen within this circle.
Mhm.
So that's also true, so which is probably in one sense better off, that because Krishna will be present even when we are struggling. So yeah, it's not easy, Prabhu. This is not easy journey, but if we have the right set of people in our lives who can be transparent, or who can point our own stuff to us, at the same time also see the other side of the story on the other people, or however whatever is provoking at that also, that helps actually. both
Yeah,
both has to be seen.
I like the word transparency. That's important.
Yeah, both has to be seen, not one side. We want such people who will see both sides, and acknowledge um, what we want in our life, what will be helpful in our life. At the same time, acknowledge what's that circle of what do we want in our life, to reorient ourselves. We want somebody like that. So yeah, but it's a very high concept of Vidura's tolerance, because tolerance is also defined, not that Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, 14th verse, that tolerance is not just when we are tolerating when nothing is happening. Tolerance is tolerating when provoking situations happen. And the tolerance cannot be gritting our teeth and tolerating. Tolerance comes from a place of compassion, empathy, understanding, and fixedness or fixity on goal. That's where the actual tolerance happens, because the material world tolerance, what we have seen, is just sit tight and tolerate. That's not the way we tolerate in the
It's
tolerance is
Trunadapi
deeper.
Sri Chena is there, but
Yeah.
end of the day, still we are human beings, right? Somebody
Yes.
they keep
Yes.
on provoking. If
Yes.
what does the mother do for his children, for her children,
Yeah.
right? So it cannot be the same. Somebody has to do something for their
Yes. So
correction.
yes. So we want to bring it up to see what can we do for our own self-help, and if we have any role to play in other person's, helping other person. So both, yeah, it's a deep thing, Prabhu, yes, but it's a practical stuff which happens in our life, fortunately or unfortunately. We pray that it is for our benefit eventually, but then it's not easy, it's very rough. But yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, these lessons may remain unchurned if we don't talk about it.
No,
But
I am thinking, practical way of application. Of course, we are reading Bhagavatam every day as a story,
mm,
but how do we apply in our life? That's what I'm struggling, right? It's everybody has that struggle, but I'm trying to
mm,
apply and see whether we can apply.
yes. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you.
hmm Thanks a lot. Yeah. Okay. So with that, I guess we will pause here. It's 8:15 on a. Then we will resume again tomorrow. Continuing on Vidura's inquiries about the Pandavas, Hare Krishna devotees. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. हरे कृष्णा.
Thank you.